In the year 1606, the streets of Seville echoed with the sounds of desperation. Merchants lined up, their faces etched with anxiety, demanding payment in silver for goods that had rapidly lost their value. The Spanish real, once a symbol of burgeoning wealth and power, now lay heavy in their pockets, an anchor dragging them into the depths of insolvency. As they glanced nervously at the coin in their hands, a familiar face of a king loomed in the background. Philip III, who had risen to the throne during an era of unprecedented opulence, now found his realm on the brink of financial collapse. The Spanish real, the predominant currency of Europe, was unraveling right before their eyes. Empires do not fall by mere chance, they follow a discernible path that can be traced through the generations. The decline of the Spanish real is a prime example of how overvalued currencies can encourage an unsustainable economic environment, ultimately leading to collapse. By the end of this exploration, you will see the signs of decline and understand the mechanics that govern the rise and fall of empires. Let us embark on this countdown of 6 key factors that led to the decline of the Spanish real. Each factor reflects a stage in the economic cycle, shedding light on the systemic flaws that contribute to an empire's downfall. Number 6. The silver glut. In the 16th century, the discovery of vast silver reserves in the New World transformed Spain into the wealthiest nation in Europe. By 1571, Spain could boast an influx of approximately 300,000 kilograms of silver annually from the colonies. This seemingly endless stream of wealth led to rampant overproduction of silver coins, flooding the market. The abundance of currency initially seemed beneficial, but it created a paradox. With increased supply came decreased value, the once respected Spanish real began to lose its purchasing power. The very currency that symbolized Spain's dominance now threatened its economic stability. In this way, the silver glut foreshadowed the fundamental misunderstanding of value, a theme that recurs through monetary history. Reassessing the situation, it becomes clear that such a phenomenon is not unique to Spain. In modern times, the overproduction of money plays a role in crises as diverse as the subprime mortgage collapse of 2008 to contemporary inflationary pressures. An overabundance of currency often signals that confidence in its value is fleeting. Number 5. Rampant inflation. As the Spanish real flooded the market, inflation began to spiral out of control. The prices of basic goods doubled between 1560 and 1600. By 1602, inflation reached an astonishing 300%. This rampant inflation not only eroded the real's value but also instigated social unrest. In 1596, citizens rose against injustice, rising prices, and stagnant wages, the beginning of widespread societal discontent rooted in economic disparity. Families struggled to feed their children, and small businesses collapsed under the weight of rising costs. In modern economies, inflation continues to be a lurking specter. Witnessing rising prices and diminishing purchasing power, citizens often ask themselves whether their currency will retain its value in the years to come. Historical records show that the failure to manage inflation can lead societies into chaos, echoing the tumultuous days of the Spanish Empire. Number 4. Unsustainable military spending. Spain's ambition knew no bounds. To maintain its empire, the Spanish monarchs funneled vast resources into military campaigns and overseas ventures. Between 1560 and 1659, military expenditures consumed nearly 80% of the Spanish treasury. This drain on resources diverted funds from potentially stabilizing initiatives within the economy. As history will indicate, imperial overreach often leads to economic turmoil. Take the Roman Empire as an example, which at one point spent 75% of its budget on military endeavors. Like Spain, Rome found itself stretched thin, both militarily and economically, ultimately leading to its fall. The impact of such unsustainable spending has a modern parallel. Countries today grapple with the implications of defense budgets that eclipse social programs. The lessons from Spain and Rome's appetites for power remain poignant in today's world. Number 3. Debasement of the currency. In 1602, when confronted with a fiscal crisis, the Spanish government made the desperate decision to debase the real by alloying it with inferior metals. This decision reduced the real's silver content and aggravated inflation. The once revered coin became significantly less valuable, yet the government continued to mint it, filling the coffers with a diluted currency that eroded confidence in the financial system. The outcome was predictable: public trust in the currency evaporated, leading to a disjointed economy. A similar moment occurred in the 1920s Weimar Republic when hyperinflation forced the government to print excessively, resulting in banknotes of unbelievable denominations, one of 100 trillion marks, to pay for basic goods. When a currency is perceived as losing inherent value, confidence quickly unravels, marking the decline of not just money but also the economic stability surrounding it. Number 2. Loss of confidence in the real. As inflation raged and the currency was debased, confidence in the Spanish real plummeted. People turned to alternative forms of payment, goods and services, neglecting the currency that had once been the backbone of commerce. By the 17th century, even neighboring countries began to reject the real in favor of more stable currencies. Spain's economic isolation started to take shape as trade partners sought alternatives to a failing currency. This loss of confidence rings true in today's landscape as nations encounter economic uncertainty. When citizens begin to lose faith in their currency, they instinctively seek safety in tangible assets or globally accepted alternatives. The transformation exemplifies a shift that has been witnessed throughout history, reinforcing the cycle of currency collapse. Finally, number 1, the final collapse of the empire. By the early 1700s, the repercussions of the declining Spanish real reached a climax. The economy was in ruin, beset by crippling debts and rampant inflation. The once dominant Spanish Empire, a shadow of its former self, found itself unable to maintain its vast territorial possessions. In 1713, the Treaty of Utrecht marked a significant decline as Spain ceded territories to its rivals and paved the way for increased foreign influence in Europe. The trajectory of Spain follows a familiar pattern, a once powerful empire succumbing to the weight of its own economic mismanagement. From the rise of the real to its catastrophic decline, the mechanics of collapse reveal an unyielding truth across time: confidence is ephemeral, and empires must be vigilant in their economic stewardship. As we survey this journey through the decline of the Spanish real, it becomes evident that economies follow cyclical patterns that repeat throughout history. The overproduction of money, rampant inflation, excessive military expenditure, debasement of currency, and the loss of public confidence all coalesce into the inevitable decline of empires. And while each empire may believe itself unique in its circumstances, this belief often serves only as a precursor to its downfall. In this moment of reflection, pay heed to the machinery of collapse that lies beneath the surface of economic turmoil. By recognizing the warning signs of decline, nations may hope to steer clear of historical pitfalls that have beset those before them. Which empire do you think we are most like right now? Tell me below. History does not repeat, but the money rhymes. Subscribe for the patterns that outlast every empire, and tell me below which collapse you want decoded next. The decline of the Spanish real serves as a harrowing reminder not only of the factors that contributed to its demise but of the broader mechanisms that characterize the life cycles of empires. We must understand that these elements are interwoven in a tapestry of economic history. To continue our exploration, we will delve deeper into the specific mechanisms at play, beginning with a nuanced view of currency overvaluation and its consequences. The Spanish Empire, basking in the glow of newfound wealth, was blinded by the allure of its silver. This brings us to our first key factor, the *** overvaluation of the real ***. Initially, the value of the Spanish real soared due to the influx of silver. The real was overvalued in its early years, instigating a false sense of security. For a time, the currency seemed almost untouchable, as merchants and citizens alike treated it as the gold standard of trade across Europe. By 1550, the Spanish real was used in international commodities markets, primarily funded by the silver mine from Potosi, where as much as 1.6 million kilograms of silver were extracted from the earth annually. Yet, this prosperity was a mirage. While the silver might have had intrinsic value, its overproduction led to a surge in supply that exceeded genuine demand. The Spanish government, banking on continued wealth, failed to reduce its output in light of diminishing returns. As the abundance of currency led to overextension, the real was gradually stripped of its purchasing power. This overvaluation phenomenon is reminiscent of modern economic instances, particularly during the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s. Investors poured money into technology companies, inflating their valuations based on unrealistic expectations. When the corrections came in the early 2000s, the bubble burst, and many of these companies vanished. Thus, overvaluation serves as a timeless warning, indicating the inherent risks of chasing wealth without regard for sustainable value. Next, consider our factor number 5, the *** behavior of creditors ** towards a degenerating currency. By the late 16th century, as the Spanish economy was faltering, creditors began to lose faith in the Spanish crown's ability to manage its debts. The unprecedented military spending, coupled with the debt accumulated through costly campaigns, forced Spain to prioritize its obligations to foreign moneylenders, primarily those in Genoa and the Netherlands. The Spanish crown defaulted on several occasions, with notable defaults occurring in the years 1557 and 1575, which not only further eroded trust but also restricted the country's access to credit. Modern parallels reveal troubling insights. During the 2008 financial crisis, nations, particularly those within the Eurozone, faced potential defaults. Investors and creditors alike rapidly reassessed their faith in the fiscal policies of several nations, leading to costly bailouts and austerity measures that reverberated across the European landscape. Such cycles of credit risk reflect a continuing trend. Unmanageable debts breed a culture of mistrust that threatens the financial fabrics of entire nations. This leads us to number 4 in our countdown, the *** excessive taxation and exploitation of the lower classes ***. As the Crown attempted to maintain its expenditures, it placed an insatiable burden on the lower and middle classes. In the late 1500s, taxes increased dramatically, by as much as 50% in some regions, leading to widespread discontent. The introduction of new taxes culminated in revolts, which were less about dissent against Spanish rule and more regarding economic survival. In 1596, a significant uprising in Valencia demonstrated the outrage stemming from rising taxes and stagnant wages, showcasing an exacerbation of the economic divide. This insatiable need for revenue resonates within today's discussions about taxation and social equity. Many nations face similar pressures. As costs rise, the burden often falls largely on the lower echelons of society. Across multiple nations, tax increases designed to swell government coffers have sparked protests, reflecting frustrations reminiscent of those felt by Spanish citizens hundreds of years ago. This connection through time emphasizes that the exploitation of the populace can only persist for so long before igniting flames of revolt. Now, we turn to factor number 3, ***, the global trade imbalance ***. While Spain flourished with silver imports, the reality of trade deficits began to loom large. Spain had increasingly relied on silver from its American colonies to fund imports of goods from around Europe and beyond, leading to a scenario where wealth was flowing out much faster than it was being replenished. By 1600, it is estimated that more than 80% of Spain's economy was predicated on foreign trade. With a lack of domestic production, Spain became dependent on goods from England, France, and the Netherlands for necessities, from textiles to food. In a parallel view, we see similar acts throughout history and into modernity. Countries that find themselves dominant in one resource or commodity often neglect the balanced development of other sectors. For instance, during the early 20th century, the oil boom catapulted nations like Venezuela into prosperity. However, when oil prices plummeted, the economy, which had relied on oil exports alone, faced devastating consequences. The imbalance in trade fosters an environment ripe for collapse. When one avenue of income falters, the economy will likely teeter on the brink. The culmination of these economic missteps heralds critically our factor number 2, ***, the institutional corruption and mismanagement of resources ***. Throughout the latter years of the Spanish Empire, rampant corruption infiltrated the ranks of its bureaucracy. Government officials profited personally from their positions, siphoning wealth while neglecting national investment. By the late 17th century, the appearance of corruption reached startling proportions, as key figures would mismanage funds meant for crucial infrastructure, leading to the dilapidation of key economic regions. As history teaches us, governmental corruption is no anomaly. Contemporary examples abound, from kleptocratic regimes siphoning funds from state resources, starving the populace of essential services, to historic institutions like the Roman Senate, filled with self-serving officials who prioritized personal gain over public good. The lessons learn that as governance becomes tarnished by corruption, it paves the way for its own decline, yet another layer in the cycle of empires. Ultimately, we arrive at the top spot, the parasitic role of the crown in the face of economic degradation. By the early 1700s, the weight of governance grew untenable. The Spanish monarchy, believing itself sovereign and immune to the forces of economic gravity, continued to make grandiose claims toward imperial expansion. Instead of questioning unsustainable debt, flawed military overreach, or the efficacy of the currency, the crown engaged in denial, leading to a downfall so profound that it crippled not just the economy but its very foundations. In modern contexts, we often hear political leaders assure their constituents of stability, often neglecting signs that cannot be wished away. Nations suffering from overreach, excessive borrowing, and corrupted governance share this unknowingly stubborn belief in invulnerability, a hint of arrogance that sets the stage for eventual collapse. The story of the Spanish real exposes these delusions, serving as cautionary tales for those who fail to learn from history. As we conclude this extended examination of the decline of the Spanish real, remember that these patterns recur, echoing through history. The signals of overvaluation, excessive taxation, trade imbalance, mismanagement, and distrust act as warning signs not just for Spain, but for all nations. By understanding these mechanisms, even today's economies can glean insights, allowing them to avoid the pathways that led great powers to their own ruin. While history offers a sobering reflection on our own modern economic conditions, we are afforded the opportunity to learn from both the triumphs and calamities of those who have come before us. As we navigate the tides of economics, we must remember, empires rise and fall, not on whims of fate, but through a calculated interplay of decisions, mistakes, and lessons forgotten. History does not repeat, but the money rhymes. Subscribe for the patterns that outlast every empire, and tell me below which collapse you want decoded next.